Hello and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynne. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business. I just want to give a shout out to Rounded, our sponsor, because I know for me, my quarterly BAS used to be so stressful. But I love Rounded because everything is there and so tidy, Rach.
I know, no more shoe boxes of receipts. I also really love that my accountant can log into the program remotely and help me with lodgement. Just do it without me needing to even worry about it.
That's what we love.
But best of all, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can save 20% on any annual Rounded plan. Even if you've got the Rounded discount last year, you can get it this year as well.
Awesome. The show notes always have the details.
Yeah. Hi, Lynne. We've talked a lot about niches on this podcast, finding one, narrowing down, all of that. But I don't think we've covered purpose-led brands as a niche.
No, you're right. We haven't. And I think it's such an important niche because I know many of our listeners love working for not-for-profits in particular.
Yes, we have a great guest this week, Carmen Hawker. I've met her a few times and had some chit-chats on the phone, and she's just so interesting. The perfect podcast guest, in fact. Would you like to introduce her and we'll get her into the hot seat?
I'd love to. So Carmen Hawker is a copywriter, campaigner and brand strategist for purpose-driven businesses and Bcorps, and she's going to talk about that, from sustainable fashion to ethical finance. With a reputation for copy and content with personality and pizzazz, she has a background in not-for-profits, community engagement and fundraising. Through her business, Carmen, get it?
So cool.
So cool. She's partnered with dozens of women-led and values-driven organisations such as B-Lab Australia and New Zealand, Verve Super, Money Girl and Ethical Clothing Australia to craft words that spark action and reimagine the status quo. Welcome, Carmen.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I remember when I first met you, I think it was with Brooke McCarthy, and I checked out your brand, Come and Get It, and I was like, oh my God, I fangirled. I have to admit, I just loved it.
Yeah.
So very exciting to have you here.
My dad would be very happy because he used to call out Come and Get It every night at dinner and thought he was so funny. And then so when I went freelance and just like, oh, I need a business name, I thought, I've got it. It's perfect.
Yeah.
He must have loved it. Does he love it?
Yeah. He still calls it out.
Yep.
Yes, number one fans, mum and dad.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
hilarious.
Nice. So it's so great to have you on the podcast. You may be known by many of our copyright listeners because, as Rachel said, she's met you around the traps. But maybe start telling us about your career journey and how you've gotten to this point. Have you always loved working with these sorts of businesses?
Ooh, good question. I mean, the short answer is yes, but short answers probably don't make for very engaging podcasts. So the slightly longer answer is that, I come from a family of storytellers and people who aren't short on words, let's just say. And so my career journey in working with purpose-driven business kind of started at uni. So I was studying, yes, I'm another copywriter with an arts degree, probably, but I was studying international relations, and I had this opportunity to do an internship with an international NGO in New York. And it was there that I was starting to see how much communications, particularly social media at the time. And when I'm saying social media, I was talking probably Facebook and Twitter at the time, were really being used to democratize storytelling and give people a platform and a voice who might have been marginalized by mainstream media platforms. So it was sort of 2011, and you might remember sort of, the Arab Spring and so-called Twitter revolution, and seeing how activists and people were organizing and using these then very free platforms to change systems. And so from there, I went into the women's health and family violence sector. So
Wow.
quite pointy end work, and I'm working with a lot of social workers, people in refuges, frontline service workers, advocates, health educators, and kind of thinking, well, what do I have to contribute to this movement? I know that this is where my passion is, but what kind of skill do I have? And I think, like a lot of people, when something comes naturally to you, you think everyone can do it. But then I sort of realized, oh, actually, not many people really like writing, or they really like crafting messages and campaigns that get people to care about big and important issues. And so started to really carve out a bit of a niche for myself in comms for gender equality, feminist campaigns, and systems change work. So then when I went freelance in 2018, I guess I didn't want to do the corporate 180. I'd always been so led by my values and so in that kind of work. And that's when I found out about certified B corporations and these for-purpose businesses that have their values really front and center, didn't have to compromise a thing, but then I could also make a living. And that's kind of how I found this little niche.
Wow.
What part of that niche do you love the most in working? Because you've worked with so many different things in coming to that point. So what do you love about your niche now?
I love that values are front and center, and that people are looking for ways to build community and build loyalty with consumers or citizens with a values alignment. So it's beyond just, hi, this is my product or this is my service and it's really good, so you should buy it. It's that I also, here's my story, here's how I got here, and that people can really connect with that. And I love that.
Plus there's this like wide transparency instead of, a bit of subterfuge that we can see with brands sometimes.
Yes, without a doubt. And I think a commitment to radical transparency, even if it means owning the things that haven't gone so well, like actually sharing, hey, we really messed this up, or this didn't go well. And having that, like I said, radical transparency, I think is really revolutionary in the kinds of systems we have that can be so opaque. And we are used to having people trying to pull the wool over our eyes. And it's kind of a pushback against that.
Yeah.
So interesting. I guess it's interesting to think about how copy fits into that sort of those sort of purpose and everything. How do you prepare your copy or create your copy to work into those sort of bigger picture goals and strategies?
Another good question. It's just full of good questions this morning. I guess, and this probably goes across not-for-profits and for-purpose businesses in my experience, but often just people aren't really good at talking about what they do, or they spend so much time head down, bum up in the actual work that they forget to share about it. And so the way that I kind of see my role is almost like this partner that sits adjacent to their business that goes, hey, tell me all the really great things you're doing and I will tell everyone else.
So that kind of comes into marketing. You're kind of taking on that role, I suppose, for these companies that, perhaps forget to market or have a really ad hoc way of marketing.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think for a little while I've struggled to fully own the label copywriter because it does feel like a real hybrid slashy kind of thing. So it's a little bit marketing, it's a tiny bit salesy, it's a little bit content creation and educational, it's a bit brand, it's a bit all of the things. So I think I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm just going to own that. I can bring more than just the straight copy, but I think I just put it all under that kind of communications or sharing what you do with the world umbrella.
Yeah. That resonates with me so much, how you just explained kind of what a copywriter does and the other arms of that. It's not just words. I love that. Well, talk to us about where, you generally find your clients. Do they come to you, or are you out there spruiking and kind of like directly going to people you want to work with? How does it work?
Yeah, so up until this point, I would say predominantly word of mouth. In the first instance, when I was very first starting to build a business, it was, I'm just going to put the call out to the people I know. Hey, do you need a website done, or do you need some social media captions, or do you need a marketing brochure or something like that? And then gradually it just kind of snowballs from there. People, have a good experience, and then they'll put your name forward for if they hear things, and it just sort of happened really organically from there. I guess whether the market's changed or whether my market has changed, I don't know. But over the last couple of months, I've probably had to be a bit more deliberate than I have been before about actually going out and finding work.
I think we all have.
Yeah.
You're not alone.
And in order to do that, I just very much focus on going to events or being in rooms with people that I would love to work with. And so whether that's going to Bcorp events or events like South by Southwest Sydney, which was on recently, that was really incredible just for meeting people who are kind of coming together with a lens for how can we make the world better, and how can we innovate, and how can we do things differently. And so, people who are attracted to those sorts of events, I tend to find that I make really good connections with people. And then it's just a case of following up and just going, hey, do you want some extra help with XYZ?
Yeah.
Here I am.
So interesting. So do you find that your work is sort of, you've got a few retainer clients, I understand, or do you do a lot of sort of project-based contracts? How does it work?
Well, how does it work? How does it not work some of the time? That's probably the better question. But this has been a big learning for me over the journey. I think this might resonate with a lot of other freelancers. Is when I first started out, it was all about certainty. I just wanted that guaranteed sort of money each month so I could plan my life. And that meant taking on as many retainers as I could possibly service well.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And then I found that really boring. So
Right.
I got to a certain point where I'm like, I feel like I'm just in a churn here, and this is not what I went freelancing for. And I wanted the opportunity to jump at the new shiny thing. So I had to sort of scale back the number of retainers to be able to create space for projects or campaigns. And so then I would take on usually a couple of campaigns or projects at any one time. But when you add it on top of your retainers very quickly, recipe for burnout. Like, you are just way overstacked, and there's too many things. So I think even still now, 6 years in, I'm finding that mix of retainer and project-based campaign work to be a constant juggle.
Oh.
Where I've sort of landed on it is that as long as my retainer work can cover my operating expenses, then it gives you the freedom to be able to jump or choose the kinds of projects and campaigns that you really want to work on, rather than things that you're like, oh, I have to pay my bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a weird balance, isn't it? Like, I've got one retainer client at the moment, and that's 5 hours a week. And so it's kind of manageable to fit other projects in. But I don't know if I could do more than that. Looking like you kind of want it for your cash flow, don't you? So there's that push-pull thing. You're like, I just want to know that $3,000 is coming in this month or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, how many can you feasibly take on, and how long, how many hours do your retainers, have they been in the past?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I probably don't do retainers based on hours. I'm sort of trying as much as I can to shift away from trading time for money. I think that it isn't an overly profitable way to run my business, but I think it also perpetuates capitalist systems as well when we are so I'm trying to walk the walk on that as well, and really lean into the value that you can offer.
Yeah.
So in terms of how many retainer clients at once, oof, it does depend. I would say 4 to 5 is probably my sweet spot. That's close to what I've got at the moment. But I do tend to work with relatively small businesses. And so it can be dictated a little bit by their budget. So let's say each of those might be around the $2,000 a month kind of a spend, and a couple of days worth of work or a few outputs. It might be a long form piece of content and a couple of EDMs or newsletters, maybe some social captions, things like that. So in my mind, the retainer is kind of that premium service content partner position. And if I'm working with someone new, it tends to be in the kind of campaign or project capacity. Hey, let's see how we work together. Let's see how it goes. Let's give you something shiny and awesome at the end of it. But let's not dive all the way into a long-term relationship just yet. Like, let's just dip the toe in the water, and then retainers kind of come in after that.
Okay. It's so much better, isn't it, to have that where they give you like deliverables and you say, this is the fee for that deliverable. If it's the same every month, that makes it kind of easy.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, it's like, we want you for this amount of time and we're going to throw different things at you every week. And it's just about what you can fit in to that time.
Yes.
But yeah, I can see the value in the other side for sure.
Yeah, my retainer client, I have a certain amount of deliverables and some project management, which I guess is the time bit. And that works for me. Yeah.
Interestingly, though, what you're saying, Rachel, like my experience the last maybe 6 to 12 months has been that people are wanting a little bit more of that kind of guaranteed container of support of like, hey, I just want to know I can email you or call you and have you jump on XYZ. I don't want to be locked into, just having one blog and one this and one that. And so trying to come up with a retainer model that is simultaneously consistent and builds momentum, but then also is really flexible and agile so you can jump on priorities is a conundrum and something I've been trying to build this year. I think it is definitely the future of retainer work.
Amazing. So how have nonprofits and for-purpose businesses changed over the years in terms of how they work and what they want? Have you noticed a change or in your work?
Look, not-for-profit as a sector is an incredibly hard sector to be sustainable in. I think that when you are relying on donor dollars or philanthropic inputs, naturally there is an environment of scarcity that creates. It creates a level of competition between not-for-profits for that same money. And so I think the main difference that I've seen is not-for-profits kind of looking at ways that they can diversify their income, and whether that means they're dipping their toes into business realms and trying to create products or things that can give them really consistent revenue streams that don't rely on those sort of big donor pushes. So I think that that's a really big change, and therefore what they're looking for is really edgy campaigns or things that kind of cut through and do things a little bit differently that maybe are a tiny bit controversial or just gives them the chance to stand out in what is an incredibly oversaturated market in Australia. I think the shifts for purpose business, I mean, apart from the fact that I think it's just becoming far more popular, that people are realizing that they can use these businesses as vehicles for change. Like, I can actually make money and do good at the same time. Yes, please.
Like an example of a for-purpose business, would it be like Who Gives a Crap or something like that?
Perfect example, most common example, and for very good reason. In the past, an organization like that who donates 50% of profits to sanitation and water projects worldwide. So the issue that they are trying to solve, or the problem they're trying to solve, is a lack of access to sanitation and hygiene throughout the world, they might have gone down the path of doing a traditional not-for-profit, let's just raise money for this cause. But instead, how about we think, let's take this product that people need every single day, toilet paper, and make it better. Let's make it recycled. Let's make it an ethical product that's wrapped in paper and not plastic and all of these things. And then let's channel some of the profits into solving these big world issues. And then everybody wins. So, and I think what they do exceptionally is have fun. These sanitation and hygiene, it's not the sexiest of issues, but it's also incredibly important. And so rather than kind of beat people over the head with, the global issue that they're trying to solve, they have a bit of fun. And I think, look, this is a fine line, because particularly the work that I've come from, when you're talking about violence against women, family violence, we're not trying to make fun of these issues. It's not funny. And yet, when we are organizations, only take serious things seriously is my sort of mantra. And so where is the opportunity to create some more light-hearted fun, because the world is bleak enough.
Yeah.
So, I think that's an excellent example that you use.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk to you about greenwashing, because it's a bit of an issue. And I guess the idea that sometimes people can create whatever product and it makes it look like it's for purpose by they're saying, a percentage of profits will be donated here, or we do this. We might use really bad ingredients, but we'll have less plastic. How do you cope with that?
What are you noticing, both of you? Have you noticed like a lot of greenwashing, or a lot of copywriters sort of getting into hot water? Or
I did a story recently that was on sustainable businesses, and one of them was a lab-grown diamond. They were a case study in the story, and the story got killed, apparently. Like, it's not, I've followed it up, which is a real shame, because the other businesses in it, it meant that they didn't get any exposure for their fantastic businesses. But I think the reason that got caught in compliance was because, lab-grown diamonds, amazing. It's this whole new thing. You don't have to, there's no mining involved, but actually there's so much more kind of energy used and water and all of that. So it's a really grey area. So that's one place where I've had it impact my own work, even though I got paid. It was a shame that the story didn't go ahead, or maybe it will in future. But yeah, so I think you have to really dig deep, don't you, on some of these companies and see who owns what and that kind of thing. Yeah,
I find the same thing, because I mostly work in architecture and building, and there's a lot of people wanting to create sustainable homes, and there's ways to do that. And then but sometimes some of the materials used, they might, whether timber's a good thing, like it's really because timber is renewable and sustainable, but then sometimes it's also used in deforestation. So there's all these different certifications there is, and some of them are really good and some of them are a bit dodgy. So you have to sort of delve into that. And a lot of companies will say, we've got this certification or that certification, and you have to dig in to see if it really is a reputable certification. That's the tricky bit, I think.
Yeah, both excellent points. I guess from my point of view, looking at greenwashing, not only that it is occurring, but the fear, or the for consumers or citizens, like, hey, what can I trust? How do I have a radar for these things? I think the first thing to say is, like, yes, greenwashing is an issue, but it pales into comparison when we think about the impacts of climate change. And so, let's have a little bit of perspective here for something. Yes, okay, greenwash, yep, that is bad. And we don't want to see companies tapping into the sustainable and ethical values of citizens and manipulating them in order to sell products. No, we don't want to see that. What we do want to see is businesses realizing that, okay, sustainable is important. And if their way into that is thinking through a commercial mindset and going, okay, yep, consumers are really wanting that. I'm going to need to create some sustainable things. And then by doing that, they are starting to change their behavior and change their practices, then I am a relatively accepting for however you find your way into the movement. I don't really care as long as you find it your way
Yeah,
there.
I agree. Yeah.
And look, this is to your point about the certifications, Lynn. Like, I think that is one of the reasons that I love Bcorp certification and have found a real niche and specialty in working with certified Bcorps, because it is an incredibly robust certification program that covers off many and all different areas of business. But as far as I'm concerned, it's also the only one that looks at the business holistically. It's not saying you're a business in this industry specifically and that's all we're going to look at. It's actually an umbrella for all businesses. So you have businesses in this movement who are small mortgage broker or accounting firms versus big fast moving consumer brands, as well as a one person operation making slow ethical fashion, and a toilet paper company. Like, there's no other movement that I know that is a broad enough umbrella to include all of those businesses under it. But what brings them together is a desire to transform the economic system and be held accountable for their impact. So yeah, I love it as a certification. And look, speaking to how robust it is, I'm going through the verification process myself as a sole trader, and I'm close to 10, maybe 12 months into the process now. So
Wow.
I've spoken to a few people who've done the B Corp thing, and it is quite rigorous and quite exhausting.
yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, also, that's in the context of, but the big issues that we're trying to solve here are much bigger than that. So me spending a bit of time jumping through a few hoops, like, that's fine, sign me up.
Well, we've talked a little bit about how you've worked with small clients that don't have a lot of budget. And I guess one of the problems with working with businesses that kind of do valuable and important work is you might be worried about, should I take this client on? I'm trying to make a decent living myself. I mean, I guess, is that something you face quite a bit?
Probably earlier in my freelancing journey, and probably even extending further back into my not-for-profit work, I would say yes, that was absolutely an issue for me. I spent all of my 20s and early 30s earning absolutely nothing, just no money, because this issue. And like, yes, from a position of privilege, because I fully acknowledge that, like, in order to be able to volunteer or work in really low boner industries, you've got to have support networks behind you, whether it's a partner or a family or other community support. So, I made choices to work in that sort of thing and not to take too much money from it. When you start to shift into purpose-driven business, I think the thing is that they have to survive as businesses. They have commercial lens for their work. And if it's not viable, the business won't survive. And if the business doesn't survive, the impact doesn't get made. And so, like, I think it is absolutely possible to get paid well and do good work. And whether that was true 10, 20 years ago, I can't really speak to that, but I would say probably not as true as it is now.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a shift in working for not-for-profits in the past few years. Like, before it was like very small budgets, and now it's like, here's my quote, great, accepted. Even if it's quite high for copywriting work. Yeah, I'm seeing that shift, which is good. They're obviously putting budget into comms and thinking this is an important thing that we need to. Yeah.
It's a hard conversation to have, though, isn't it? Don't you? How do you have those conversations? Say, when somebody says, we want you because you're skilled, but we don't have the budget for you. How do you have those conversations?
Yeah.
Well, I think I also, as a relatively bleeding heart kind of person, I make sure that I set aside a certain amount of time to offer pro bono and low bono services to organizations that I care about. And so I, at any one time, and contributing between 1 and 3 campaigns or projects or doing things at reduced rates for people. And that's just kind of built into my business model. So it's also now a key part of my Bcorp certification, and that I dedicate a certain amount of time to providing pro bono and low bono services to not-for-profits or other cause-driven organizations. And it's not to say that everyone else then pays a premium, but you do have to budget for that as an individual. Okay, yes, I need to earn this much across the year. And if I want to dedicate X amount of hours to working for these causes, then yeah, I've got to then find where I'm going to get that money elsewhere.
Interesting. Let's wind back a little bit, because we've touched a bit on B Corp businesses and we've touched on for purpose. Can you talk to us about what a B Corp business is and how they work?
Sure can. I probably should have done that quite a bit earlier in that conversation.
I asked that at the beginning. Sorry.
Conversation might have made a lot more sense if people are sitting there going, what on earth is this B Corp thing everyone's talking about? Yes, so a certified B Corporation is a business that meets high environmental and social standards. So they have a commitment to stakeholder governance, which means that it's not just about making shareholders happy, it's about considering that how does our business benefit all? And the B stands for benefit for all. So how does community as a stakeholder in our business benefit from what we're doing? How does the environment, how does the earth benefit from what we're doing? And really taking a far more holistic lens of the impact that they're creating. And then I would say another key pillar is this commitment to radical transparency, accountability, but then also the idea of continuous improvement. It's saying that no business has it 100% right 100% of the time. Like humans, we all make mistakes, businesses make mistakes, but what we are committed to is always being better and doing better. And so, Lynne, to your point earlier about the sustainable materials in architecture, it's, okay, if the material of the moment is wood, let's say, or X, and we're using that, and then some extra information or data comes to light that, hey, actually, that's creating a really bad impact over here. It's going collectively, okay, great, we've got this new data, now let's do things differently.
Yeah.
So taking responsibility for continually improving is a core part of what these businesses are doing. I guess what I would then say is this is a global movement. So this is a global independent standards that businesses all over the world are adhering to, whether you are a clothing business in Mexico or you are a hospitality business in France, or you are an accounting firm in Australia, or you're a I don't know, a skincare manufacturer in Aotearoa, New Zealand. This is a global standardized independent third-party certification.
Yeah, so interesting.
What would be your advice to freelancers who are wanting to work with B Corp businesses?
It would be to dive right into what the certification actually is and how it works. I think one thing that has really helped me position for these kinds of businesses is, and a phrase I use quite often is, I speak fluent B Corp. I understand the certification, not only because I've gone through it as a business, but because, I've been the person who's responsible for trying to translate all of the standards for the movement, because I work with BLab Australia, Aotearoa New Zealand, who is the not-for-profit who actually does the certifying and verifying of B Corps in our region. So I've had the opportunity to sort of be right up close with this and then try and translate these standards and what it all means for organizations in our region. So I'd say brush up on the standards themselves and then dive into the directory. There is a directory, a global directory of businesses who are certified B Corps, and you can start to see like what is in your area. Let's have a look. And then almost without fail, every certified B Corp, it's such a deliberate choice, right? You have to really put your money where your mouth is, and you have to dedicate resources in order to become certified. And so they're really proud of that. And there will be something on their website that tells the story of how they got certified. So read it, like dig into why they actually wanted to be part of this movement.
Oh, interesting. I think with our whole B Corp certification and things, there's a lot of stakeholders involved, and that's a part of the commitment, isn't it? That's my fear of working for these sort of organizations, is dealing with multiple stakeholders, everyone with a strong opinion. How do you manage that?
Oh, got any tips? I mean,
sigh.
Yeah, I don't know if it's any different though to working with any organization. I think in some ways it's almost easier because there is a certain buy-in for values and impact. And so you don't have to have really difficult conversations about about the realities of, oh, well, that's going to create, XYZ mess for the planet, because people are really motivated by similar things. Managing different stakeholders, I mean, I think when you are a freelancer, in some ways you're kind of shielded from so much of that. And it's actually what I love about freelancing. I mean, like a lot of copywriters, I'm like, hand up, highly sensitive person, grade A empath over here. When I work in organizations, I'm soaking in all of the things all of the time from the people around me, and it's so exhausting and gets in the way of the creative process. And so one of the things about being a freelancer is you can kind of sit off to the side a little bit and be like, hey, you figure out what you want in there, and then when you figure that out, come over here and tell me, and then I will do it for you.
Let's talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of writing persuasive copy, because obviously that's your bag, especially for not-for-profits, say, or, purpose-led businesses. Are there special things that you need to consider? We talked a little bit about using humor and when to not use humor for serious topics and that sort of thing. Where do you start? What's your process?
Yeah, so, I mean, I did just mention the word empathy, and I think that it is fundamentally important to writing really human and personality-led copy. I would say the most important place to start is with a business that really understands who they are, because if they don't understand who they are, they won't be able to communicate it on purpose and with purpose.
Yeah.
Tangential to that, I would say understanding who your customer or ideal client is fundamental work for these organizations. And I'm not talking, oh, we know our target audience is women aged 30. We're talking like, what are the values of these people? What are they doing every day? What are they juggling? More of the psychographic kind of traits of these people. What are their values? But how do they describe it in their own words? Not what we think they care about. What do they actually care about? And so very much taking this kind of research and mindset surveying, really getting to know who your customers are and what they care about, so that then you can mirror back to them in the same kind of language, and not in a way that manipulates them, but in a way that goes, hi, this is my product or service, and I genuinely think this is going to make your life better. And so cut to the chase, like make it easier for people, be of service to people by being very clear about how your product or service meets their needs.
So very much that ethical copywriting.
Entirely.
And using that voice of customer and that sort of thing.
Yes, entirely. And I think, look, this is where my background in feminist campaigning and systems change. I think, I just have a really strong radar for not manipulating people, knowing the responsibility and the power of words. And we know how important our work is. We know we have so much power to shape narratives, to shape minds, to stir hearts, to tell stories that connect, and to use that power responsibly, not over people, not to manipulate them, not to guilt them, not to, So I think just taking so much responsibility for the power that you have as the person with the words, and really using that power with people and for people in a really responsible way.
I love that.
It sounds to me as there's a big storytelling element to the writing you do. Do you think that's true?
Absolutely think that's true. I think that, humans understand the world through story. Many, cultures for tens of thousands of years, First Nations cultures are predominantly built on this oral storytelling. This is not a new thing. It's just that marketers have suddenly figured out that, actually telling stories is really effective for getting people to connect with what we're doing. So yes, absolutely. I think there's a really strong storytelling element to copy. I think often when I work with businesses, it's like, hey, what's the narrative? What is the message you're trying to send? And what would be some examples of stories that help illustrate that in practice, and then helping them shape up those stories in a way that is of service to their community.
Oh my God, Carmen, we could talk to you all day. I've just got one last question for you because we're on time. We ask all our guests about their tech tips. Is there any software or digital tools that you would be lost without?
Good question. I mean, a lot of small business owners probably say this, but I would say Canva is a wonderful tool. And I've talked a lot about democratizing comms and storytelling. I think at its heart, it is about democratizing design, and it has given ways for people like me to be able to put together a schmick looking document by myself. So I would definitely say Canva. I would also say Squarespace. I have built my website on Squarespace and can easily update it myself. And so, I'm all for tools that you can DIY if you want to, but then if or when you don't want to, you can outsource them. And so Squarespace can kind of have that functionality. And then, how can I not mention ChatGPT on a podcast about copy?
I know we didn't even touch on AI. How do you use it then?
So many thoughts and feelings. I use it every single day for everything at the moment. Including how do I prepare something really pithy and wonderful for the Content by podcast.
Clever.
That's radical transparency right there.
I think it's an incredibly powerful and useful tool, again, when used responsibly, big caveat. And it's not, I get asked so many times, I'm sure you do too, it's like, how is AI affecting your work? And, are you getting any work anymore? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. It's making some parts of my job heaps easier, and frankly, good riddance, because that kind of leg work is really exhausting. And so if it can free me up to do more of the creative, wonderful things, then fantastic and great, sign me up. But then, as we know, you kind of need that basis of skills and a good eye for what resonates with people. Otherwise, you just hook, line, and sinker, take what ChatGPT tells you, and then, put it in copy, and we can all spot that from a mile away. So now we can, at least. So I think to be able to have those kind of skills and take the rough drafts that it gives you and then shape it into something that is more in line with what you want and how your clients actually talk, I think it's really useful. So I'd say they're my top 3 tech tools.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Oh, thanks so much, Carmen. This has been fabulous. It's really interesting to hear about your work, and I found it really inspiring. And I'm sure Rachel did the same.
Yeah.
So tell us where listeners can find you and any sort of resources you have or whatever.
Yeah, of course. So my website is carmengetit.com.au.
Still love it.
Yeah.
We do love a pun. And so I offer monthly retainer packages for purpose-driven businesses and organizations, as well as campaigns and brand DNA strategies as well. But for any of those what I call color lovers and dopamine queens, I also, if you really want to make a statement, I have an online store of earrings, accessories, and fabulous
They're
very cool
stationery.
Yeah.
That, it might think, how does that fit together? Well, that's what I said, all under the banner of helping you make a statement. I sort of put my own creative copywriting hat on to write some really fun product descriptions and come up with some fun products myself in collaboration with women and non-binary makers. So that is all there as well on my website.
Lovely. Well,
thanks again, Carmen. That brings us to the end of the show this week, but we appreciate everybody who is listening. And if you like the show, please leave a rating and review on the platform where you find your podcasts so we can read it and get warm fuzzies and feel like we're actually putting something awesome out into the world.
Yeah. And we'll certainly put a link in the show notes to how to get in touch with Carmen. So thanks. We'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks again to our wonderful sponsors, Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software that helps freelancers run their business with confidence.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can check your welcome emails for an exclusive discount code on the annual subscription rate. You can also find it in the private Facebook Gold group, or just contact us at hello@rachelslist.com.au.